Thank you guys for tuning in, watching a new video. If you've watched the last video, you would have seen I actually started this and I showed you what I work with. So I'll link the other video for you guys to watch it, and then you can see where this is all from and you can buy it yourselves too. So just from a career perspective, marketing perspective, because that's what I'm about, that's what I do. And I really wanted to talk about a topic that's obviously so important to me as a black woman, and I feel like it will be important to so many of you who are also black women out there, but also women of color as well. And the reason why I'm focused on women, because I'm a woman myself and I can only speak of experience that I can relate to, but this also definitely is applicable to men as well, specifically men of color, because this is all about representation in marketing matters. And I guess this is from behind the scenes, who are working on the exciting stuff, but also the message, the pictures and the visuals that are out as well. So making sure there's black talent, there's black stories, there's black perspectives out in the media in the world as well. So I want to read something to start the video, just to give a bit of insight, something that I discovered the other day, and I tweeted it. So if you follow me on Twitter, you'll see it, but it's Olivia_gold. So make sure you guys are following me over there. And this pertains to just the work environment in general, but I think this also highlights something super important in the marketing industry. So this is from the Mckinsey report, so super corporate, but it's interesting, this bit anyway. Let me get it. So it says here, this gives a bit of, it's like a little graph chart, but I'll just highlight the things I feel like are important for us to talk about. It just shows the representation in corporate jobs by gender and race in 2022. So this is present now, not old news, this is new news. News that is relevant for us now going into 2023. And it actually just shows you the disparity of women in the workplace. So just to give a bit of context. So in 2022, women, entry level, white men dominate by 33%, white women dominate by 22%, women of color 19%, and men of color 19%, right? So when we get to manager level now, so white men dominate by 41%, so that's basically half. White women dominate by 27%, so that's like a quarter, which only leaves women of color, 14%. So that's the disparity there. If we go to the other spectrum with the C-suite, white men dominate 61%, so over half. Okay, and this is across corporate industries, workplace. That says a lot. White women dominate 21%, so if we add that together, that's 82%. So what's left? 5%. 5% of women, black women, brown women, are in C-suite positions, and men of color are 13%, which is even still small as well. So yeah, black men, brown men, you guys are part of that marginalized community as well. Senior manager, director level, which is the level I would be at now. So white men dominate 47%, white women 20, is that 5 or 6? 26%, and women of color 10%, and men of color 16%. That is where we are today in 2022. So for me, that in itself just really like validates why representation in marketing matters, both behind the scenes and having people that look like myself in these roles, specifically as we get more senior. Okay. So people like myself and you working in these roles, in these companies, but also making sure that there's representation in terms of the messages, the marketing, the content, the campaigns that we see out there in the world. So this is why I really wanted to do this video, just to really reiterate that message and talk about my experience and why I feel like it's so important. And this is why I'm so happy that a few of you have like commented and just in tune on my journey, because this is a career that you're pursuing as well. People have commented are women of color, so there is a place for you, and it's so exciting to know that so many more people are coming into the industry as well. So it really like cements. I see from interning, the last video I did, which talked about my internship and how I got my first job and what I was doing in my first job. That was obviously me stepping into the real world, like having a naive perception when you're in uni, have an idea of what the working world is. Then you actually go into the force and you're like, oh, okay. And I guess the shell shock for me was obviously being a black girl within my team. To be honest, that was a small company that there was only one other marketing assistant and one head of. So we were a team of 3. So Like, that wasn't really anything. Just assumed my manager would be white, so I didn't really have any issues there because, as I mentioned, there was such a small team. It's actually when I went into bigger agencies or bigger brands, global brands, like conglomerates, because they are the majority. So it was when I worked in agencies, like I worked in a branding agency before. I worked within the client services side of the business. This was after that first job that I talked about in my last video. So if you haven't checked it out, please click in the link below and check it out, because I go into detail about that, exactly what my role was, what I did, how I stayed there for 2 years and kind of was ready for the itch to move on. So my next role was an agency that helps brands cultivate their brand, their literally logo. And that's another part of marketing and branding that's important as well. So the brands that we see, the logos that they have, so much work and money has gone into them cultivating and developing the logo that you see today. Because obviously that represents the brand other than the product or service that they're offering. I got an opportunity there, being young and naive. I was like, yep, said yes, as you should, to be honest, when you're discovering yourself. I took contract role there and I worked in client services, and that is what it says on the tin. You are liaising with the client, you're the point of contact, you're the project manager, you're the person that oversees from beginning, middle to end. You updating the client on where we are, you're the person that moves the project along, and you kind of like put the team together. It could be illustrators, designers, strategists, marketers, whatever it is. It's there. And that was my first experience being in a big agency that's known globally. I was the only black person in that whole company. In the UK office, the only person. So I was extremely intimidating because, one, I'm not thinking I'm good enough, I know everything that I'm supposed to know to be there. But of course, I'm determined, want to put my head down, work, do the most that you can do. But there was 2 instances that I experienced that are still so in front of my mind, and just reiterates why representation, like matters. Because if not, it really quiets our voice and makes us feel like inadequate, like we're not supposed to be there, but we very much are. Especially if you're born, you're supposed to be here, so you are supposed to do something, right? 2 instances. The first one was I was an account executive, and I had a white counterpart who was also account executive. We started maybe a week or 2 apart from each other. Lovely girl, and we had different accounts. So my client was, I had an art client, I had a retail client and another client, and she had different street clients as well. Literally, they had everyone on their books. And we're new, we're both starting out the same thing. So doing our timeline sheets, just doing our project plans, doing our briefs that we're supposed to send to the client. And we were like, I think maybe a 3rd month in, and she was asked to travel overseas to visit the client and do a presentation, which was quite standard, specifically when your agency and your clients are based overseas. And she was asked, and she was talking about it, super excited, and I was excited for her. And then I was supposed to do the same, and then they just changed and just said, oh, this other person is gonna go, which was my manager at the time, which was more senior. And I just thought it was really weird. That client was based in Turkey, so I would have to go out to Turkey. And they just completely eradicated that option from me going. And I was just like, but why? And I never thought about it then much. I thought, oh, it's an issue with me. Maybe I don't know enough. Maybe I'm not confident enough. But then I literally thought, I was just like, especially when you're on client services, your role is very pivotal, because the client obviously develops a relationship with you. So that like for like is super important. It dawned on me that they wouldn't want me to go, because they probably wouldn't want a black face to be the representation of the whole agency. And that's so sad, because she was getting all these opportunities. We were both delivering the same amount of work, same type of work, but I wasn't being offered the same opportunities to travel overseas, meet the client. Always someone else would have to go instead of me. And I was just like, wow, that is so sad. And when you think about it, especially when I look back now, because I've had more time to reflect, I was the only black face in that whole company. And the second example I'm going to bring out is the most pivotal one, which made my head blown that day, but I didn't do anything about it. It's probably the biggest regret. We had a client, and it was myself, a strategist, and a designer, and we were in the room and we were looking at the client's work, and one of the things was to change their internal documents and their external booklets that they show with clients digitally, all of that stuff. And obviously in that it showcased the brand ethos, services, and also their colleagues as well, the different departments and what they do and the value that they offer. We were in the meeting room, it was 3 of us. I'll never ever forget this day. And we were looking at the documents, which was on a screen in a meeting room, and the strategist was just like, oh, that coloured girl looks weird. And I was like, wait, hold on, what? And I was 25, I believe. No, 24, because I left and then I turned 25. I was 24. And I was like, what did I just hear? And he repeated himself. And I was like, oh, that coloured lady looks super weird. They like edited her body in the like booklet. The digital booklet just looked really weird, off brand. But it's the fact that he called her a coloured girl. And I was like, we are in 2016. Why is that coming out of his mouth? And me being a black woman in the meeting room with two white men, I kept quiet, and that was like my biggest regret. Even when I look back, I'm like, oh, I should have said something. Like, the person I am now would have said something, but back then I was like shocked, confused, and still felt intimidated. You know, black girl in a room with two senior white men, like, how much can you say, how much can you... And that is another example of someone that probably doesn't interact with that many, you know, like black people, an agency that don't recruit like black people, and here I am as a black girl in a room, and this is how they talk. Someone that is black. Picture when you think about when they are putting out, you know, narratives, perception, stories, you think the consideration of a black person is going to be there? No. And this is why all these situations like the H&M saga that happened when we were in lockdown 2019, 2020, where the black boy had a monkey face, the outrage of that, like, who was in those rooms signing off that asset, not considering the nuances that is so important. And this is why marketing is so important, because it really is the helm of telling stories, building narratives, painting pictures, visions, perceptions to the wider audiences that hold so much power. So you want to make sure that the story's being told in the most authentic, the most true, the most diverse, the most inclusive. However, if there are people in that position who have no understanding, who don't even have an inclusive mindset, diversity in thought, thinking, perspective, culture, this is what's going to happen. And I think that was my first experience of really seeing it, how it happens. Of course, I wasn't bold enough to say anything then, but my role, that can never fly again. But I really wanted to highlight that and use my own personal experience and example to really showcase why it is important. There aren't enough strategists, there aren't enough web, you know, like developers, there aren't enough marketing managers, consultants, whatever, behind the scenes that work for these bigger agencies. And you can probably dive into so many reasons why, but I could probably highlight the few that I feel like why it is and why it is important and why representation matters within our like industry. And the first thing is, historically, media, fashion, television, anything entertainment related really started off white man's world, and it was helmed and run by rich white people, especially in the Western world. Over the years, these businesses have developed, gone public, grown, gone global. The people at the leadership level have stayed the same. And you have to think from a business perspective, things affect is top down, and it's just that simple. You think about, you know, fashion and the big household names, the leadership team are white, and that's just the truth. And it's not a bad thing if that's what it is. That's, you know, like, that's what it is. The problem comes in the fact that they don't have a diverse thought, diverse perspective, diverse culture. They're not integrating with other cultures who are their customers, who are people who advocate for their brand. This is where errors come in, and then they put together campaigns that don't really talk to the masses. And I think another point is even the terminology that is used in the workplace. It's like, we need to market to the masses. Who are the masses? You have to think, like, from a Western world, majority demographics that dominate are white people. So when you think about, oh, focus on the masses, just thinking, oh, let's go big. But there are actual biases within these words, and this is why it's so important that people like myself and other women of color, men of color are in these roles, because we can really bring that diverse thought and speak to a true population of who's in the world. Our people of mix, you know, like heritage. A lot of people have migrated from, you know, Africa and other countries to the UK, the US, globally. It doesn't run anymore. Just speaking to one group is not diverse. that's not diverse at all. If anything, it's the most non-inclusive thing you can do as a brand or business today. Whatever industry you're in, you have to speak to everyone. Also affects the bottom line, which people at the top might not consider because they're always used to seeing big numbers. But as we can see, brands are shifting, brands have died because they haven't really kept up with the times. So keeping up with the times isn't just about keeping up with trends, it's also keeping up with where we are, like in life, in how life is evolving, how diversity is growing, how, you know, perspectives are growing, why different ethnic groups, marginalized groups are just as important as any other. So we need to make sure those people work in these establishments, and this is why I'm really passionate about marketers of ethnic like descent are in roles, are in senior roles, because our experience and who we are is valuable experience which we can offer to the industry as well. Specific industries like fashion and music, entertainment, they're the most influential industries who are influenced to dress a certain way by who you see wearing it. Music can inspire you to be happy or sad. Entertainment has the power to tell stories beyond your wildest dreams. So there's so much power in it, and that's why it's important that the power in it has to be authentic and diverse to make sure we're telling true stories. So even though this video is about marketing perspective, when you think about it, it goes deeper. Marketing in general, the basis of it is actually psychological, because it's all about connecting to your customers, wants and needs, who they are as a people, what their beliefs are, their interests. You really have to pay attention to what brands are saying and what they're doing, because really they're talking to people like me and you who wake up every day, go about our business, spend time with our families. Really need to have a lot more depth in their thinking and in their messages that they're bringing out to make sure that into the right people at the right time and making sure everyone is included and not the masses. I wish in 2023 we could just like kill that word, because I just don't think it's positive. I don't think it reflects to where we are in 2022/2023 and beyond, and where the world is going, where businesses are going, brands are going, services, all of that. So deep what I'm saying when you think about it, but it's so important, and this is why representation matters. All, you know, young people who are studying fashion marketing in general, want to go into these brands and businesses and really make a change. It's so important that you have a diverse perspective, background, black, brown descent, African, Caribbean, Asian, religion, Christian, Muslim. It's so important that you bring your full self to your work as well, because as you have an opportunity to make sure those communities are included in the messages that you convey to the world. Even if you're just selling, you know, like hoop earrings, you want to make sure that the models represent the different types of women out there who wear hoop earrings. It's like those small things matter too and can really change the trajectory of a brand. There's a documentary on Netflix, that's it, and it's about a brand where they had to wear slippers in the store and jeans. It's an American brand, and it was dark in the store. A documentary on Netflix that talks about this, and it just validates everything that I'm saying. And I think it's about States, which was obviously built on the surfer dudes, like the white guys, blonde hair, blue eyes, the girls that had long blonde hair, blue eyes, that were slim models, and they would recruit specific people that just looked like that to work in the store, who they think was the modern day American boy or girl. But then it actually backfired on them, because people that looked like myself, women that were plus size, guys, dark skin, wanted to work there, of Latin descent, short people, they would go to interviews and they wouldn't get interviewed. And in the documentary they showed that in the back end Q perspective, their criteria for hiring people was insane. It was like going to like a modeling casting. They're like, no too short, no too dark, no too this, too that, too fat, too this, and that is insane. And if you think, like, they lost so much money, bankrupt, they had so much toxic, and that's just based on they just thought they wanted to hire the ideal American woman. And that, I think, is just a basic example of why representation matters, because that's not true representation of who is out there in the world, who are buying your products and who are making you millions of money every year. Also, it highlights the lack of representation in these bigger companies as well, affecting the growth and the evolution of businesses as well. It was a whole mess. I'll try and find it and link it, because I just think it's so pivotal, because it just talks about why representation in marketing matters. And we still have a way to go, but I think it's important, if you are stepping into the industry, just making sure you are diverse in your thinking, your strategy, regardless regardless whatever industry or client you work on. It's a place for all of us to touch on it because it's something that I have experienced and wanted to share, and why I'm still passionate about working in the industry, or even if you start your own agency and do your own thing, just making sure that ethos is within your mission as a business as well. That's it, guys. I think I've covered everything, but let me know if you have any stories as well, or any concerns, or it's important and pivotal that we make space for the new marketers that are going to be the next CMOs of these amazing companies, or start your own amazing company one day too. I think I've covered what I wanted to say. There's probably going to be more because there always is, but make sure you guys like, subscribe, comment, hit me up on Instagram, DM me. I've been enjoying some of you messaging me. We're tapping into 2023, so it's all about positivity, black joy, growth, and just growing as an individual. Thanks guys for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next video.